The calm before the storm, Admiral. Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, staring out at the vast field of stars. Behind her, the largest human fleet ever assembled waited in perfect silence. 2,000 ships of every class hung in the darkness like sleeping giants. Battleships, carriers, destroyers, and cruisers, all equipped with humanity's most advanced weapons. But something felt wrong. "Admiral," called Lieutenant Torres from the communications station. "We're getting strange readings from the outer sensors. It's like space itself is bending." Sarah's eyes narrowed. For 3 months, they had been tracking the Zephyrian Empire's movements. The alien empire had been growing stronger, conquering system after system. Their technology was superior in many ways. Their ships were faster, their weapons more powerful, and their numbers seemed endless. Yet here was humanity's main fleet, ready to strike at the heart of the empire. Ready to hit them where they least expected it, their home system of Zerion Prime. "What kind of readings?" Sarah asked, moving closer to Torres's station. "Energy signatures I've never seen before. The computer can't identify them. They're coming from everywhere." Captain James Morrison, Sarah's second-in-command, frowned. "Could be solar storms. This system has an unstable star." But Sarah knew better. She had been fighting aliens for 15 years, ever since first contact went horribly wrong. The Zephyrians hadn't come in peace. They had come with weapons blazing, destroying Earth's outer colonies without warning. Millions died in those first attacks. Now, finally, humanity was ready to hit back. "All ships, maintain radio silence," Sarah ordered. "We stick to the plan. In 6 hours, we jump into the Zerion system and catch them completely off guard." The plan was brilliant in its simplicity. While the main Zephyrian fleet was away conquering the Terran colonies in the Outer Rim, humanity would strike at their home world. One massive, coordinated attack that would cripple their government and military command. But as Sarah watched the sensor readings, a cold feeling crept up her spine. "Admiral," Torres whispered, "the readings are getting stronger. Much stronger." Suddenly, space around them began to shimmer. Reality itself seemed to bend and twist. Then, as if emerging from a dream, massive shapes began to appear. Zephyrian ships. Hundreds of them. "Impossible," Morrison breathed. The intelligence report said their fleet was 3 systems away. Sarah's blood ran cold as more and more enemy ships materialized around them. These weren't just any ships, they were the Empire's finest. The massive dreadnoughts that had destroyed whole human colonies. The fast attack cruisers that hunted down refugee ships. The command vessels that coordinated planetary bombardments. "It's a trap," she realized. "They knew we were coming." The largest Zephyrian ship, a massive black dreadnought called the Void Bringer, moved into position directly in front of the human fleet. Its hull was covered in strange symbols that seemed to pulse with dark energy. Then the communications array crackled to life. "Humans," came a cold, mechanical voice. "I am Supreme Commander Vexhai of the Zephyrian Empire. You thought you could surprise us. You thought your primitive minds could outsmart the greatest military force in the galaxy." Sarah clenched her fists. Every instinct told her to order the attack, but she was vastly outnumbered. The Zephyrian fleet was 3 times the size of humanity's main fleet. "Your pathetic species has been nothing but an annoyance," Vexhai continued. "Today we end this war once and for all. Today we destroy every last human ship and prepare for the final assault on your home world." The bridge fell silent. Sarah could see the fear in her crew's eyes. They had walked into a perfect trap. The enemy had been waiting for them, ready to crush humanity's last hope. But then Sarah smiled. "Commander Vexhai," she said, activating the ship's communications. "You're absolutely right about one thing. Today this war ends. But you've made one critical mistake." "And what is that, human?" Sarah's smile grew wider. "You assumed this was our main fleet." On cue, space began to shimmer again. But this time it wasn't Zephyrian ships appearing. Human vessels began materializing all around the enemy fleet. Massive ships that dwarfed even humanity's largest battleships. Ships that had been hidden using technology the Zephyrians thought impossible. "You see," Sarah continued, "we knew about your trap. We've known for weeks. This fleet, this was just bait." The real main fleet has been waiting for you to reveal your position. Commander Vexhi's voice turned from confident to worried. Impossible. Our intelligence networks are perfect. We monitored your communications, your ship movements, everything. Yes, you did. And we fed you exactly what we wanted you to see. While you were watching our decoy fleet, our real forces were building ships in hidden bases throughout the galaxy. Ships equipped with technology your empire has never seen before. The new human ships were massive beyond belief. Each one was the size of a small moon, bristling with weapons that glowed with strange energy. These were humanity's secret super dreadnoughts, built in complete secrecy over the past 2 years. Humans don't just fight with ships and guns, Vexhi, Sarah said. We fight with our minds. We think 3 steps ahead. We plan for every possibility. And right now, your entire empire is exactly where we want it. The Zephyrian fleet began to move, trying to escape. But it was too late. They were completely surrounded by the largest military force humanity had ever created. This is impossible, Vexhi transmitted. Your species is primitive. You've only been in space for a few hundred years. How could you possibly... Because, Sarah interrupted, you never understood what makes humans dangerous. It's not our technology. It's not our weapons. It's the fact that when someone threatens our family, our home, our children, we don't just fight back. We make sure it never happens again. As the 2 fleets faced each other in the darkness of space, every person on both sides knew that the next few minutes would determine the fate of 2 civilizations. The trap had become a counter-trap, and now the real battle was about to begin. The hunter becomes the hunted. All ships battle positions. Admiral Chen commanded, across the human fleet. 2,000 vessels moved into attack formation, while the massive super dreadnoughts took point positions. Commander Vexhi's voice crackled through the communications with barely controlled panic. Fleet commanders, implement emergency protocol 7. All ships, full power to weapons and shields. But Sarah could see the confusion in the Zephyrian formations. They had expected an easy slaughter, not a carefully planned ambush. Their ships were scattered, many still in travel formation rather than battle readiness. Target their command ships first, Sarah ordered. Take out their ability to coordinate. Lieutenant Torres looked up from his station. Admiral, we're receiving data streams from the recon drones we planted in their territory. The intelligence was right. This is their main battle fleet. If we destroy them here, the Empire's military backbone is broken. Captain Morrison stepped closer to Sarah. What about their home world? Zarian Prime has powerful defensive platforms. That's being handled as we speak, Sarah replied with a grim smile. Fleet Commander Rodriguez took the 3rd and 7th fleets through the back door. By now, they should be knocking on Zarion's front door. The battle began with humanity firing the first shot. The lead super dreadnought, UES Vengeance, unleashed its main weapon. A beam of pure energy, brighter than a star, lanced across space and struck the Zephyrian flagship. The alien ship's shields flared and died instantly. The beam tore through the hull like paper, splitting the massive vessel in half. Direct hit, reported the weapons officer. Enemy flagship destroyed. But the Zephyrians weren't helpless. Their remaining ships quickly formed defensive circles and began firing back. Purple energy beams and plasma torpedoes filled the space between the fleets. Several human ships took heavy damage as the alien weapons found their marks. Commander Vexhi's voice returned, now transmitted from a different ship. You may have surprised us humans, but we are still the superior force. Our technology is centuries ahead of yours. As if to prove his point, the Zephyrian ships began moving in ways that should have been impossible. They twisted and turned through space like living creatures, dodging human weapons with impossible grace. Their own weapons seemed to bend around obstacles, seeking out human ships like guided predators. They're using some kind of space-folding technology, Torres reported. Our targeting computers can't keep up. Sarah watched as 3 human destroyers were destroyed in rapid succession. The Zephyrians might have been caught off guard, but they were adapting quickly to the new situation. Activate the Prometheus protocol, she commanded. Morrison's eyes widened. Admiral, are you sure? We've never tested it in actual combat. Do it. Across the human fleet, every ship began broadcasting a complex series of signals. The signals seemed random at first, but they were actually communicating with something hidden throughout this region of space. For the past 6 months, while the Zephyrians thought they were tracking human fleet movements, humanity had been secretly deploying thousands of small devices throughout their territory. Devices that looked like harmless space debris or asteroids. Now those devices activated. Suddenly, the space around the Zephyrian fleet came alive with explosions. Hidden mines and automated weapons platforms revealed themselves and began firing at point-blank range. The alien ships found themselves under attack from every direction at once. "What is this?" Vexai screamed. "Where are these weapons coming from?" "We've been preparing for this day for 2 years," Sarah transmitted back. "While you thought you were hunting us, we were setting traps throughout your territory. Every system you control, every trade route you use, every strategic location, we've been there first." The Zephyrian formation began to crumble as ships broke away to deal with the hidden weapons. But this played right into humanity's hands. The scattered enemy vessels were now vulnerable to concentrated fire from the human super-dreadnoughts. "All ships, focus fire on the scattered elements," Sarah ordered. "Don't let them regroup." The UES Vengeance and its sister ships began systematically destroying Zephyrian vessels. Each blast from their main guns was like a miniature sun, vaporizing anything it touched. Smaller human ships darted between the giants, finishing off damaged enemy vessels and rescuing the crews of any human ships that had been hit. But just as victory seemed certain, the tide began to turn again. "Admiral," Torres shouted. "New contacts! Lots of them!" More Zephyrian ships were arriving, not just a few, but hundreds. These were reinforcements from other parts of the Empire, called in once news of the battle had spread. "It seems your trap has a flaw, human," Vexai transmitted. "You cannot face the entire Empire alone." The new ships were fresh and undamaged, while humanity's fleet had already taken casualties. Even worse, these reinforcements included ship types the humans had never seen before. Massive vessels that seemed to be built from living crystal, pulsing with organic-looking energy patterns. "Bioships," Morrison breathed. Intelligence said they were just rumors. The crystal ships opened fire, and their weapons were unlike anything humanity had faced. Instead of energy beams or projectiles, they fired what looked like living creatures, space-dwelling organisms that attached themselves to human ships and began eating through the hulls. "They're boring through Deck 7, came a panicked report from the UES Thunderbolt. "These things are alive. They're actually eating our ship." Several human vessels began to list as the bioweapons consumed critical systems. The carefully planned battle was turning into a chaotic nightmare. "Admiral," Morrison said urgently, "we need to consider retreat. If we lose the main fleet here, Earth will be defenseless." Sarah stared at the tactical display. The Zephyrian reinforcements now outnumbered the human fleet 4-1. The bioships were causing havoc, and more enemy vessels were arriving every minute. But then she noticed something strange. The new Zephyrian ships weren't in formation. They had arrived scattered and were taking time to organize themselves. And the bioships, while powerful, seemed to have a weakness. They were slow to maneuver. "Torres, patch me through to all human ships," she commanded. "You're on." "Admiral." "All vessels, this is Admiral Chen. I know things look bad right now, but remember why we're here. Remember the colonies they destroyed. Remember the families they murdered. Remember that every single person on Earth is counting on us." She paused, watching as a human cruiser managed to destroy one of the bioships by ramming it with a damaged engine core. "They think they can overwhelm us with numbers. They think their new weapons will make us run in fear. But they've forgotten something important about humans. We don't just fight harder when we're cornered, we fight smarter." As if on cue, the space around the battlefield began to shimmer once again. But this time it wasn't more ships appearing. It was something else entirely, something that would change the course of the battle forever. Humanity's secret weapon, the shimmer in space grew brighter, and then reality seemed to tear open like fabric. Through the rift stepped something that made both human and Zephyrian crews stop fighting and stare in amazement. It was a ship, but unlike any vessel either species had ever built. It was alive. The ship looked like a massive whale swimming through space, its skin a deep blue-black that reflected starlight like an ocean surface. It was easily 10 times larger than even the human super-dreadnoughts, and as it moved, space itself seemed to bend around it. What is that? Commander Vexhai whispered over the communications channel. Admiral Chen smiled. That, Commander, is why you should never underestimate a species that explores the unknown. While you were busy conquering planets and building weapons, we were making friends. The living ship communicated not through radio, but by somehow speaking directly into the minds of every person in the battle. I am Keeper Aeon of the Leviathan fleet, the voice said. Ancient and wise beyond measure. The young humans have proven themselves worthy allies. They showed us respect where others showed only fear. They offered friendship where others offered only domination. More rifts began opening in space, and more living ships emerged. Each one was unique. Some looked like giant jellyfish, others like swimming rays or enormous sea serpents. They moved through the vacuum of space as if it were water, graceful and powerful. The Leviathans, Torres breathed. The deep space legends. They actually exist. Sarah had discovered the Leviathans by accident 2 years ago, when a human exploration ship had been caught in a gravity storm near the Galactic rim. Instead of dying in the cosmic disaster, they had been rescued by these ancient space dwellers. The Leviathans were older than any known civilization. They had been traveling between galaxies for millions of years, watching species rise and fall. They rarely interfered in the affairs of younger races, preferring to observe from the shadows of deep space. But humanity had impressed them. When first contact was made, the humans didn't try to capture them for study or demand their technology. Instead, they offered help, asked questions about their culture, and treated them as equals rather than resources to be exploited. Commander Vexhai, Keeper Aeon's voice filled every mind in the battle zone. Your empire has broken the ancient laws. You wage war for conquest rather than survival. You destroy without purpose, kill without need. This ends now. The Zephyrian fleet began firing at the Leviathans, but their weapons simply passed harmlessly through the living ships. The creatures existed partially outside normal space, making conventional weapons useless against them. Impossible! Vexhai screamed. Nothing can be immune to our weapons. Your weapons affect only matter and energy, Keeper Aeon explained patiently. We are beings of space and time itself. However, our weapons very much affect you. The largest Leviathan, a creature that looked like a cosmic manta ray, opened what might have been its mouth. Instead of teeth, it contained swirling galaxies, miniature stars, and what looked like the birth of universe itself. A wave of pure force emanated from the creature, washing over the Zephyrian fleet. Where the wave touched, enemy ships simply stopped working. Their engines went dead, their weapons powered down, their life support systems shut off. The ships remained intact, but they were now just empty shells drifting in space. We do not kill unless necessary, Keeper Aeon explained. Your crews are alive but powerless. They will have time to think about the path their empire has chosen. Commander Vexhai's ship was one of the few still functional, apparently protected by some kind of special shielding. You cannot do this. The Empire will not stand for such interference. The Empire, said another Leviathan voice, this one sharper and younger, is about to have much bigger problems to worry about. Sarah's communications officer suddenly came alive with activity. Admiral, we're receiving transmissions from all across Zephyrian space. Our hidden fleets have activated simultaneously. They're hitting every major military installation in the Empire. The plan had been even bigger than the Zephyrians imagined. While they were focused on this one battle, humanity had been secretly building fleets throughout the galaxy. Ships constructed in hidden asteroid bases, crewed by volunteers from every human colony, and equipped with the most advanced weapons Earth could produce. Fleet Admiral Rodriguez reports successful capture of Zerion Prime. Torres continued reading the incoming messages. Admiral Zhang has destroyed the main shipyards in the Krios system. Admiral Okafor has liberated the prison worlds in the outer territories. But how? Vexhai demanded. Our intelligence networks monitored your every movement. Our spies infiltrated your government. You couldn't possibly have hidden such massive operations from us. Sarah's smile was cold as winter. You infiltrated the government we wanted you to infiltrate. You monitored the communications we wanted you to monitor. While your spies were watching our fake meetings and intercepting our fake messages, the real war effort was being coordinated by people your empire didn't even know existed. The truth was even more impressive than it sounded. Humanity had created an entirely separate military organization, hidden from their own official government. Scientists, engineers, and military personnel who had officially died in Zephyrian attacks had actually been recruited into the Shadow Fleet. Families who had officially been evacuated to safe worlds were actually building ships in secret bases. The beauty of human deception, Sarah continued, is that we can even deceive ourselves when necessary. Half our own government didn't know about the Shadow Fleets. How could your spies discover what we kept secret from our own leaders? Keeper Aeon's voice filled the space again. Young Admiral, your species continues to surprise us. Such elaborate planning, such commitment to protecting those you care about. This is why we chose to aid you. But the battle wasn't over yet. Even with most of his fleet disabled, Commander Vexhai still had some tricks left to play. You think you've won, humans? He snarled. You think the Empire will simply surrender because you've won a few battles? I still have one weapon left that will turn this entire war in our favor. The remaining functional Zephyrian ship began to glow with an ominous purple light. Energy readings spiked off the charts as some kind of massive weapon charged to firing power. It's a planet killer, Torres reported in horror. He's going to destroy everything in this system, including his own disabled ships. The weapon will create a chain reaction in the local star, Morrison added. It'll go supernova and destroy everything within 3 light years. He's willing to sacrifice his entire fleet just to take us down with him. Sarah looked at the tactical display. Even with the Leviathan's help, they couldn't evacuate the entire human fleet in time. Millions of people were about to die. But then Keeper Aeon spoke again, and this time there was something like anger in the ancient voice. Commander Vexhai, you would commit genocide rather than accept defeat. You would destroy star systems and kill billions of innocent lives just to spite your enemies. The Empire's honor demands it, Vexhai screamed back. Then, said Keeper Aeon, you have chosen your fate. The largest Leviathan began to change. Its peaceful, whale-like form twisted and grew, becoming something magnificent and terrible. Wings of pure energy spread from its sides, each one larger than a planet. Its eyes became twin stars, burning with the fire of justice. We are guardians of life in this galaxy, the creature said, its voice now carrying the power of cosmic forces. For millions of years we have watched species grow and learn. Some become wise, others choose darkness. Those who choose to destroy life itself face our judgment. The transformed Leviathan moved toward Vexhai's ship, and reality bent around it. Space and time twisted, creating a tunnel that led somewhere else entirely. Your empire ends here, Commander. Your species will have the chance to learn wisdom in exile, far from those you would harm. Vexhai's ship, still charging its planet-killer weapon, was caught in the space-time tunnel and pulled away from normal reality. His screams of rage and defiance faded as he was transported to whatever distant place the Leviathans reserved for those who threatened all life. The immediate crisis was over, but the war was far from won. Reports were still coming in from across the galaxy, and not all of them were good news. Admiral, Torres said quietly, we're receiving an emergency transmission from Earth itself. It's marked with Priority Alpha clearance. Sarah's blood went cold. Priority Alpha meant only one thing. The homeworld was under attack. The Empire's last stand. The transmission from Earth crackled with static and interference. But Admiral Chen could make out the desperate voice of General Martinez, head of Earth's planetary defense force, under attack by unknown ships. Not like anything we've seen before. They came out of nowhere. Civilian evacuations are underway, but losing ground fast, Sarah's heart sank. Get me a clearer signal, now! Torres worked frantically at his station. I'm trying, Admiral, but there's some kind of jamming field around Earth's system. Whatever's attacking them has technology we've never encountered. Captain Morrison leaned closer. Could it be a Zephyrian reserve fleet we didn't know about? Before Sarah could answer, Keeper Aeon's voice filled their minds again. Admiral Chen, the attack on your homeworld is not from the Empire, you know. These are the Void Seekers, the Zephyrians' hidden masters. Hidden masters? Sarah demanded. What do you mean? The Leviathan's explanation chilled her to the bone. The Zephyrian Empire, for all its power and cruelty, had been nothing but puppets. The real threat was an ancient species called the Void Seekers, beings from outside the galaxy, who fed on the life force of entire civilizations. They have been using the Zephyrians to weaken your species, Keeper Aeon continued. The Empire's wars, their conquests, their cruelty. All of it was designed to spread fear and suffering throughout the galaxy. The Void Seekers grow stronger by consuming the negative emotions of dying civilizations. But why reveal themselves now? Sarah asked. Because your species has done something they did not expect. You showed unity instead of fragmenting under pressure. You showed courage instead of despair. You showed hope instead of surrendering to fear. This starves the Void Seekers, making them desperate enough to attack directly. The communications finally cleared enough for them to see what was happening at Earth. The images were horrifying. Massive ships, each one larger than a city, hung in orbit around humanity's home world. They were not built from metal or crystal like normal spacecraft. Instead, they seemed to be made from pure darkness. Empty spaces in reality that hurt to look at directly. They're draining the planet, Torres whispered in horror. Look at the energy readings. They're literally sucking the life out of Earth itself. Sarah could see it now. The blue and green world she had grown up on was slowly turning grey. Oceans were evaporating, forests were withering, and entire cities were going dark as their power sources were drained. But humanity wasn't going down without a fight. Earth's defense platforms were firing everything they had at the dark ships. The planet's surface was covered with energy beams and missile trails as every weapon in the system opened fire. But the attack seemed to have no effect on the Void Seeker vessels. General Martinez, this is Admiral Chen, Sarah transmitted. What's your status? Admiral, thank God you're alive, came the reply. We've been fighting these things for 6 hours. Nothing we have can even scratch them. They're like holes in space itself. How much time do we have? At the current rate of drain, maybe 12 hours before Earth becomes uninhabitable. Maybe 18 before the planet itself dies completely. Sarah closed her eyes. Even if they could travel at maximum speed, it would take the human fleet 2 days to reach Earth. They would arrive to find nothing but a dead world and the enemies that had killed it. There is a way, Keeper Aeon said gently, but it requires great trust between our species. What do you mean? We can transport your fleet instantly to Earth's system. But to do so, we must merge your ships temporarily with our own bodies. Your vessels will become part of us for the journey through deep space-time. Morrison paled. Admiral, we'd be completely helpless. If they wanted to destroy us or take us prisoner, we couldn't resist. Sarah looked at the images from Earth, her home, her birthplace, dying before her eyes. Then she looked at the Leviathans, these ancient beings who had already saved them once in this battle. Do it. Admiral, Morrison protested. You can't make this decision alone. This affects the entire fleet. No, Sarah said firmly. This affects the entire human species. And I'll be damned if I let Earth die because I was too afraid to trust our allies. She opened a channel to all ships in the fleet. All vessels, this is Admiral Chen. In 60 seconds, we're going to attempt something that's never been tried before. The Leviathans are going to transport us instantly to Earth. To do this, we have to allow our ships to be temporarily absorbed by their bodies. She paused, knowing how crazy this sounded. I know it sounds impossible. I know it sounds dangerous. But Earth is dying, and this is our only chance to save it. Any ship that doesn't want to participate can stay here. I won't order anyone to take this risk. The response was immediate and unanimous. Every single ship in the fleet signaled their readiness to proceed. Humanity always surprises us, Keeper Aeon noted with something that might have been affection. Very well. Prepare your minds for a journey unlike any your species has ever experienced. The Leviathans began to glow with an inner light. One by one, the human ships were drawn into their bodies. Not destroyed or consumed, but somehow incorporated into their living structure. Sarah felt her consciousness expand as the UES Defiance became part of something vast and ancient. For a moment that lasted eternity, she could see the entire galaxy from the Leviathan's perspective. She could feel the birth and death of stars, the flow of cosmic winds, the songs that planets sang as they orbited their suns. She understood for just an instant what it meant to be a creature of pure space and time. Then reality snapped back into focus, and they were at Earth. The scene was even worse up close. The Void Seeker ships were like tumors in space, dark growths that seemed to eat light itself. Energy streams connected them to Earth's surface, draining away everything that made the planet alive. All ships, reform and prepare for battle. Sarah commanded as the Leviathans released the human fleet back into normal space. But as her ships took up attack positions, something unexpected happened. The Void Seeker vessels began to retreat from Earth, pulling back to form a defensive line between the planet and the human fleet. "They're afraid of something," Torres reported. "Their energy readings just spiked massively, like they're powering up for a major fight." "Afraid of what?" Sarah demanded. "We're the ones who should be afraid. Those ships are immune to our weapons." That's when Keeper Aeon delivered the shocking truth. "They are not afraid of your weapons, Admiral. They are afraid of your hope. The Void Seekers feed on despair and death, but your arrival has restored hope to every human on Earth. That hope is poison to them. It weakens their power and makes them vulnerable." Sarah looked at her fleet, battered, outnumbered, but still fighting. Then she looked at Earth, her beautiful blue world now turning grey, but still alive, still fighting. "Then let's give them something to really be afraid of," she said. "All ships open fire. Show them what human hope looks like when it's backed up by human determination." The final battle for Earth was about to begin. Hope burns brighter than stars. The battle for Earth began unlike any conflict in human history. As the human fleet opened fire on the Void Seeker ships, something miraculous happened. The weapons that should have passed harmlessly through the dark vessels actually began to damage them. Direct hits on the lead ship, Torres reported with amazement. "Their hull is breaching." Admiral Chen watched as streams of pure darkness leaked out of the damaged Void Seeker vessel. But instead of spreading through space, the darkness seemed to dissolve when it encountered the light from the human ship's engines. "It's working," she breathed. Keeper Aeon was right. Our hope is making them vulnerable, but the Void Seekers weren't helpless. As the human fleet advanced, the dark ships began to fight back with weapons that defied understanding. They fired beams of pure despair, energy that didn't damage metal or circuits, but instead attacked the souls of the crews themselves. "Admiral," came a panicked transmission from the destroyer UES Courage. "My crew they're giving up. They're just sitting at their stations doing nothing. It's like they don't believe we can win anymore." Sarah could see it happening across her fleet. Ship after ship began to slow down as their crews fell into hopelessness. The Void Seeker weapons were draining the human will to fight, replacing courage with despair. "All ships, this is Admiral Chen," she broadcast on all channels. "I know what you're feeling right now. I know the fear, the doubt, the voice in your head telling you we can't win. But look around you. Look at what we've already accomplished." She gestured toward the tactical display showing the results of their galaxy-wide offensive. 6 hours ago, the Zephyrian Empire controlled half the galaxy. Now their fleets are scattered, their leadership is gone, and their conquered worlds are free. "We did that. Humans did that." The speech was having an effect. Some ships began to accelerate again as their crews found renewed determination. "Look at Earth," Sarah continued. "Yes, it's damaged. Yes, it's grey where it should be blue. But it's still alive. Every person down there is counting on us, and we have never let each other down when it really mattered." More ships rejoined the attack formation. The Void Seeker vessels began to retreat as the renewed human hope weakened them further. But then the largest dark ship, a massive structure that dwarfed even the Leviathans, began to pulse with malevolent energy. "That's their flagship," Keeper Aeon's voice warned urgently. "The Void Seeker's primary consciousness resides in that vessel. If it reaches full power, it will drain the hope from every living being in this system." Can we stop it? Sarah demanded. Not with weapons. The flagship exists partially outside normal reality. But there is another way. Sarah didn't like the tone in the Leviathan's voice. What way? A willing sacrifice. If a ship rams the flagship at the exact moment it opens its reality rift, the collision will destroy both vessels. But the crew would be lost forever, not just killed, but erased from existence entirely. The bridge fell silent. Sarah looked around at her crew, these people who had served with her for years. Torres, barely 25 years old, with a wife and newborn daughter waiting on Earth. Morrison, her oldest friend and most trusted advisor. Chief Engineer Parker, who had children and grandchildren scattered across the human colonies. She couldn't ask any of them to make such a sacrifice. Admiral, Morrison said quietly, I volunteer for the ramming run. No, Sarah replied immediately. I won't order any of my people to— You're not ordering, Morrison interrupted. I'm volunteering. Earth is my home too. My family's down there. Before Sarah could argue, Torres spoke up. I volunteer as well. Then Engineer Parker, count me in, Admiral. One by one, every person on the bridge volunteered to pilot the ramming ship. Sarah felt tears in her eyes as she realized that her entire crew was prepared to sacrifice themselves to save Earth. But then a new voice crackled over the communication system. Admiral Chen. This is Captain Rodriguez of the transport ship Lucky Strike. Sarah frowned. The Lucky Strike wasn't a military vessel. It was an old civilian transport that had been converted to carry supplies for the fleet. Rodriguez, you should be staying back with the other support ships. Yes, ma'am. But I've got a better idea than a ramming attack. My ship is already damaged from the previous battles, and I've got something on board that might just work. What are you talking about, Captain? I'm carrying the prototype quantum bomb that Dr. Williams designed. The one that was supposed to be delivered to the research station before all this started. It's designed to collapse reality rifts, which sounds like exactly what we need. Sarah's eyes widened. Dr. Williams had been working on quantum weapons for years, trying to find ways to fight enemies who could manipulate space and time. His prototype had never been tested, but the theory was sound. Rodriguez, that weapon is completely untested. We don't know what it will do. With respect, Admiral, we know what happens if we do nothing. Earth dies, humanity dies, and these things move on to consume the next galaxy. I'd rather die trying something crazy than live knowing I could have made a difference. Sarah looked at the tactical display. The Voidseeker flagship was almost at full power. Energy reading showed it was preparing to drain not just Earth, but every planet in the solar system. Do it, she decided. All ships, provide cover for the Lucky Strike. Get Rodriguez to that flagship. The human fleet surged forward, concentrating their fire on the smaller Voidseeker ships to clear a path. The Lucky Strike, a battered old transport held together with spare parts and determination, began its final run toward the enemy flagship. But the Voidseekers realized what was happening. The dark ships converged on the transport, firing beams of despair and bolts of pure darkness. The Lucky Strike's shields failed almost immediately. Rodriguez, get out of there, Sarah commanded. Your ship won't survive another hit. Already thought of that, Admiral, came the reply. That's why I'm not planning to survive. The transport ship's engines flared to maximum power as Rodriguez pushed his damaged vessel toward the flagship. The Voidseeker ship tried to evade, but it was too large and the Lucky Strike too determined. At the last second, just as the transport was about to impact the dark vessel's hull, Rodriguez transmitted one final message. Tell my kids their dad helped save the world. And Admiral, give them hell. The Lucky Strike crashed into the Voidseeker flagship and the quantum bomb detonated. Reality exploded. The explosion was unlike anything anyone had ever seen. It wasn't fire or energy. It was the unmaking of space and time itself. The Voidseeker flagship simply ceased to exist, along with a perfect sphere of space around it. Where the ship had been, there was now nothing, not empty space but actual nothingness. The effect spread to the other Voidseeker ships. Without their flagship to anchor them to reality, they began to fade and dissolve like smoke in the wind. But something else was happening too. The gray areas on Earth's surface began to regain their color. Oceans returned to blue, forests became green again, and cities lit up as power returned. The planet was healing itself, drawing life force back from the dissolving enemy ships. "Impossible," Torres whispered. "How is Earth recovering so fast?" Keeper Aeon provided the answer. The Void Seekers did not destroy the life they drained. They stored it within their ships to consume slowly. When the ships dissolved, all that stolen life force returned to where it belonged. Sarah watched in amazement as Earth transformed from a dying grey world back to the beautiful blue marble she remembered. But the victory came with a terrible cost. The Lucky Strike and its crew of 30 brave souls were gone forever, erased from existence by the quantum weapon. "Admiral," Morrison said quietly, "we're receiving transmissions from all across human space. Every Zephyrian fleet has surrendered. Every occupied world has been liberated. The war is over." Sarah nodded, but she felt no joy. Victory had come at such a high price. Hundreds of thousands of humans had died in this war. Entire colonies had been destroyed, and brave people like Captain Rodriguez had given their lives to ensure humanity's survival. "What about the Zephyrian Empire?" she asked. "What happens to their people now?" "That," said Keeper Aeon, "will be decided by those wiser than any of us. The Galactic Council has been watching this conflict with great interest. They are impressed by humanity's conduct in war. You showed mercy when you could have shown cruelty. You protected civilians when you could have ignored them. And you fought for freedom rather than conquest." A new voice filled the communications channels. Ancient, wise, and speaking in harmonics that suggested multiple species talking as one. "People of Earth, I am Speaker Valdris of the Galactic Council. Your species has proven itself worthy of membership in the greater galactic community. You have shown that you can defend yourselves without becoming conquerors, that you can make hard choices without losing your compassion." Sarah straightened in her command chair. First contact with the Galactic Council, the legendary organization that governed peaceful relations between the galaxy's older civilizations. Humanity had dreamed of this moment for centuries. "As for the Zephyrian Empire," Speaker Valdris continued, "their government will be dissolved, but their people will be given the chance to build a new society based on cooperation rather than conquest. Many of them were forced to participate in the Empire's wars against their will." Sarah thought about Commander Vexhai, now exiled to whatever distant place the Leviathans had sent him. Even he might get a second chance someday if he learned to choose wisdom over violence. "Admiral Chen," the speaker addressed her directly, "the Council would like to meet with representatives of your species to discuss humanity's future role in galactic affairs. You have much to offer, your creativity, your determination, your ability to inspire hope in others." Sarah smiled. Humanity had not only survived its first interstellar war, they had earned a place among the galaxy's most respected civilizations. But even as she accepted the Council's invitation, her thoughts turned to the future challenges that lay ahead. There were still unexplored regions of the galaxy, still mysteries to uncover, still threats that might emerge from the darkness between stars. "Torres," she said, "send a message to Earth Command. Tell them the war is over, but our journey is just beginning." As the human fleet formed up for the journey home, Sarah looked out at the stars, no longer as points of light in an hostile darkness, but as destinations waiting to be explored by a species that had proven it could face any challenge with courage, wisdom, and hope. The Zephyrian War was over. The age of humanity among the stars had begun. And somewhere in the deep places between galaxies, ancient beings watched and approved. The young species called humanity had passed their first test. There would be others, greater challenges that would test not just their military might, but their character as a people. But for now, Earth was safe, the galaxy was at peace, and hope burned brighter than ever in the human heart. The Empire had panicked when humanity's fleet struck before they could react. But in the end, it wasn't humanity's weapons or tactics that won the war. It was their refusal to surrender their hope, even in the darkest of times, and that hope would light their way to whatever adventures awaited them among the stars. The End Author's Note. This story celebrates the core themes of HFY science fiction: humanity's resilience, ingenuity and ability to inspire hope even in the face of overwhelming odds. While we may be newcomers to the galactic community, our unique perspective and unbreakable spirit make us valuable allies and formidable opponents to those who would threaten innocent life.